My patient felt extremely down in life, thanks to her unfit parents, so I started crossing professional boundaries and began wanting to adopt her. Her parents were not happy. When you've been in the therapist game for as long as I have, almost 5 years, you always want to tell yourself that you've already seen it all. It's easier to deal with the job that way. But when I got a teen girl, we'll call her Lily, who came in with her dad, we'll call him Ben, I was proven so wrong that I couldn't even lie to myself anymore. Her mom had recently up and left to go live some new age lifestyle with a Reiki healer, and of course it's always sad when a mother abandons her family. But honestly, her absence was probably better than her presence, because when she wasn't outright bringing other men home and making love in front of her daughter, she was punishing her for bad grades by making her kneel in rice. Or one time she caught her daughter using a plaster, and she thought a worthy punishment was to ban her from brushing her teeth for 3 weeks. So yeah, pretty extreme case to start with, but still, nothing that shocked me enough to think about after I clocked out from work. Anyway, for more context, therapy was his daughter's idea, but instead of coming in with the typical anxiety and depression symptoms, she was having dark, intrusive thoughts about school shootings, not just imagining them, but she could picture herself, in her words, knocking out her friends and teachers while she watches the terror fill their eyes. Still, nothing I hadn't seen before, especially since she made it very clear that the thoughts were upsetting to her. She did not want to act on them. Even now, as I type, I can still picture how sad and scared she looked telling me this. Her voice was shaky, hands trembling, and if it wasn't for the code of conduct, I would have ripped her out of the chair and lunged at her for a hug right then and there. So I had to settle for offering her a plethora of verbal praise, as well as encouragement for seeking help and trusting me with this information. I could tell it made some sort of positive impact on her, because she immediately eased up and I saw a slight childish sparkle return to her eyes. In the back of my mind, I knew she was displaying the criteria for the onset of schizophrenia, but I thought she was too young to be diagnosed, and there were no signs of any serious potential harm to others. So I simply recommended that she be brought for a full evaluation with a great psychiatrist colleague of mine, because she understood the situation and was going to get her in stat. Everyone seemed relieved, and there were no alarm bells in my head for anything going wrong. But a few days later, I got the call. It was her mom. She had woken up from whatever festival ditch she had passed out in to call my office and flip out. And by flip out, I mean she had a tantrum that can only be likened to one of a 5-year-old who doesn't want to brush their teeth. I don't know what you and the government are trying to do here, but no daughter of mine will be some pilled up cottonhead. Leave my effing family alone. It took everything in me not to wish death upon her, because I've seen what happens when teenagers are stopped from getting the help they need. Spoiler alert, it's never good. But alas, the code of conduct buries its head in the sand when it comes to psychotic parents, meaning I had no power. And maybe to the untrained eye, what comes next in the story will be a surprise. But to me, well, I saw it coming from a mile. Actually, no, thousands of miles away. I could have been in Australia and still seen it coming. So by now you guys are probably dying to know what happened. Well, here it is. The daughter ended up following through and going to the school. She was found in the bathroom with an AR-15 in one hand and a tissue wiping her eyes with the other. My heart dropped, but she hadn't harmed anyone. In fact, when I received the call from the school counselor explaining the situation, I nearly collapsed with relief. Lily had actually gone to the counselor herself, explaining that she had obtained the firearm from her mother's new boyfriend's truck. The school immediately went into lockdown, but what everyone didn't know was that Lily had approached the counselor because she was terrified of her own thoughts and wanted help before anything terrible happened. I immediately rushed to the school, arriving just as police were escorting Lily out in handcuffs. I identified myself to the officers, explaining I was Lily's therapist, but they were following protocol and wouldn't let me speak with her. Instead, I found Ben pacing frantically in the parking lot, his face ashen with shock. He spotted me and rushed over, grabbing my arms desperately as he demanded answers I didn't have yet. I managed to calm him down enough to learn that Lily would be taken to the juvenile detention center for initial processing. We followed in Ben's car, driving in tense silence punctuated only by his occasional muttered curses directed at his ex-wife. At the detention center, the police interviewed Lily for hours, while Ben and I waited anxiously in a sterile, fluorescent-lit room. When they finally allowed us to see her, Lily looked absolutely shattered, her eyes vacant and rimmed with red. The detective explained that based on Lily's voluntary surrender and the school counselor's testimony, they were treating this as a mental health crisis rather than a premeditated attack. I breathed another sigh of relief, but the relief was short-lived. The juvenile court judge ordered Lily to be placed on a 72-hour psychiatric hold for evaluation. Ben was beside himself, alternating between rage at the system and crushing guilt that he hadn't recognized how serious Lily's condition had become. I tried to reassure him that he'd done everything right by bringing her to therapy, but the look of self-loathing on his face told me my words weren't getting through. As Lily was transported to the adolescent psychiatric unit, I promised to visit her the next day and help navigate whatever came next. That night, I barely slept, replaying every moment of our therapy session, wondering if I'd missed some critical warning sign. The next morning, I arrived at the hospital to find 2 police officers outside Lily's room. They informed me that overnight, Lily's mother had been found dead in a motel room, an apparent sewer slide. A handwritten note had been discovered next to her body, blaming Lily for ruining her life and causing her to lose everything. I felt physically ill. This was exactly the kind of traumatic event that could push someone in Lily's fragile state over the edge. When I entered Lily's room, I found her sedated but conscious, staring blankly at the ceiling. She didn't react when I said her name. The attending psychiatrist pulled me aside, explaining that they hadn't told Lily about her mother yet, wanting to stabilize her condition first. I agreed with this approach, knowing the news would devastate her. Ben arrived shortly after, looking like he hadn't slept at all. He pulled me into the hallway, his voice barely above a whisper as he confessed he had no idea how to tell Lily about her mother. We worked together to craft a dental approach, and when Lily seemed more coherent later that afternoon, Ben broke the news while I sat beside her, ready to provide support. Lily's reaction was heartbreaking. At first, total disbelief, followed by a piercing wail that seemed to come from somewhere primal and wounded. The hospital staff rushed in as Lily began to hyperventilate, thrashing against Ben's attempts to comfort her. They administered a sedative, and we all watched helplessly as Lily slipped back into unconsciousness. The next 72 hours were critical. The psychiatric team diagnosed diagnosed Lily with early-onset schizoaffective disorder, confirming my initial suspicions. She was started on antipsychotic medication, but the compounded trauma of the gun incident and her mother's suicide left her in a near catatonic state. Meanwhile, police investigators determined that Lily had indeed taken the AR-15 from her mother's boyfriend's truck. He was now facing charges for improper storage of a firearm. Child Protective Services opened an investigation into Ben's home environment, adding another layer of stress to the situation. When Lily's 72-hour hold expired, the doctors recommended transferring her to a longer-term residential treatment facility, as her condition required intensive monitoring. Ben initially resisted, wanting to take her home, but after I spent hours explaining the severity of Lily's condition, he reluctantly agreed. Then things got even more complicated when Lily's maternal aunt Shannon arrived from out of state, eyes blazing with accusation. She cornered Ben in the hospital cafeteria, loudly declaring that he and Lily were responsible for her sister's death. I intervened before security had to be called, escorting the hysterical woman to a private waiting area, where she broke down in tears. Shannon admitted she hadn't spoken to her sister in months, but had always worried about her mental health. Now she wanted to make sure Lily was properly punished for pushing her mother over the edge. I tried to explain the reality of Lily's condition, but Shannon was too consumed by grief to listen rationally. The situation deteriorated further when Lily was transferred to Pinewood Residential Treatment Center, a facility specializing in adolescent psychiatric care. During the intake process, the staff discovered several self-inflicted cuts on Lily's thighs that she had somehow managed to create using the underwire from her bra. This prompted an even more restrictive supervision protocol, with Lily placed on suicide watch. Ben was overwhelmed trying to manage his job, the pending CPS investigation, and daily visits to Pinewood, all while caring for Lily's 9-year-old brother Max. I received a call from Max's school counselor expressing concern about his sudden behavioral changes. He'd started shoving classmates and refusing to participate in class activities. The counselor requested a meeting with Ben, who showed up looking completely defeated. We worked out a plan to get Max into therapy as well, but I worried about Ben's capacity to handle everything. My concerns proved justified when Ben missed several of Lily's family therapy sessions, citing work conflicts. The Pinewood therapist reported that Lily was barely speaking during individual sessions, withdrawn to the point of being practically non-responsive. The CPS caseworker, a stern woman named Veronica, suggested that Lily might need to be placed in a group home after discharge from Pinewood if Ben couldn't demonstrate more engagement in her treatment. Ben exploded at this suggestion, accusing everyone of conspiring against him and storming out of the meeting. I tracked him down in the parking lot, where he admitted he was drinking more than usual to cope with the stress. He felt trapped, unable to help Lily, failing Max, and now at risk of losing custody of both children. I connected him with resources for parents of mentally ill children and urged him to attend at least one support group meeting. He promised to try, but I could see the resistance in his eyes. Meanwhile, Lily had been at Pinewood for 3 weeks when she finally started responding to medication. Her psychiatrist, Dr. Hall, reported that the voices Lily had been hearing were diminishing, and she'd begun participating in group activities. But there was another problem. Shannon had been sending Lily letters blaming her for her mother's death, letters that the Pinewood staff had fortunately intercepted before they reached Lily. The facility director banned Shannon from contact with Lily, which prompted another round of threats and accusations. Shannon even called my office, leaving a rambling voicemail about how the system was protecting a murderer. I reported this to Lily's caseworker, concerned about what might happen after Lily's eventual discharge. Veronica decided to visit Max at school to assess his situation, and what she found troubled her enough to recommend temporary removal from Ben's home. Apparently, Ben had been leaving Max alone for hours after school while he visited Lily or attended meetings with lawyers and caseworkers. Max had mentioned to a teacher that he often made his own dinner and sometimes went to bed without seeing his dad at all. When confronted with this information, Ben broke down completely, admitting he was failing as a parent but begging for another chance. Veronica reluctantly agreed to leave Max in the home if Ben arranged proper after-school care immediately. Ben's sister Casey agreed to stay with them temporarily, providing the supervision Max needed. After 6 weeks at Pinewood, Lily was stable enough for discharge planning to begin. The treatment team recommended a partial hospitalization program, followed by intensive outpatient therapy, with the understanding that Lily couldn't return to her previous school. The school board had implemented a zero-tolerance policy that banned her regardless of the circumstances. Ben tried to arrange homeschooling, but between his work schedule and Max's needs, it quickly became clear this wasn't feasible. Lily ended up enrolled in an online program with minimal oversight, spending most days alone in her room while Casey focused primarily on Max. When I visited the home for Lily's first post-discharge therapy session, I found her unwashed and blank-eyed, her medication untouched on her nightstand. I immediately called Dr. Hall, who agreed that Lily's living situation was compromising her recovery. A family meeting was scheduled to address these concerns, bringing together Ben, Casey, Veronica, Dr. Hall, and myself. Shannon somehow learned about the meeting and showed up unannounced, bringing Ben's sister Diana, who had previously shown little interest in the situation. The meeting quickly devolved into chaos as Diana suddenly proclaimed that Lily had always been odd and questioned whether she might be dangerous to Max. Ben defended Lily half-heartedly while Shannon nodded enthusiastically at Diana's accusations. I tried to redirect the conversation to Lily's immediate needs, but the family dynamics overpowered any attempt at productive discussion. In the midst of this squabbling, we all failed to notice Lily standing in the doorway, having overheard everything. She fled to her room, locking the door behind her. When we finally got the door open, Lily was curled in the corner, hands over her ears, rocking back and forth. The incident resulted in another hospitalization, this time at the county emergency psychiatric unit. Dr. Hall recommended that Lily not return to Ben's home given the toxic environment, and for once, Veronica agreed without hesitation. This sparked a legal battle as Ben insisted he could provide proper care for Lily, while Shannon surprisingly petitioned for custody of Max, but not Lily. Shannon claimed Max needed to be protected from Lily's influence, further cementing Lily's status as the family pariah. The juvenile court court judge assigned to the case, Judge Martinez, was known for prioritizing family reunification whenever possible. He ordered a comprehensive evaluation of both Ben's home and Lily's mental status before making any permanent decisions. In the interim, Lily was placed in Harmony House, a group home for adolescent girls with psychiatric conditions. Her arrival there was far from welcoming. Within hours, the other residents had somehow learned about the gun incident and began calling her school shooter behind the staff's backs. Lily retreated further into herself, refusing to participate in house activities and eating meals alone in her room. The only bright spot was an art therapy session where Lily created a haunting self-portrait that caught the attention of the therapist, who recognized genuine talent beneath the trauma. Ben's visits to Harmony House were sporadic at best. He often brought his new girlfriend Claudia, a loud woman with strong opinions about mental illness being all in the mind. I witnessed one particularly painful visit, where Claudia suggested that Lily just needed firmer discipline, rather than coddling from doctors. The Harmony House staff reported that Lily typically spent hours in bed after these visits, emotionally depleted. Meanwhile, the custody battle for Max intensified. Shannon hired an aggressive attorney who painted Lily as a dangerous influence, claiming Max would be traumatized by continued contact with his sister. Ben fought back half-heartedly, increasingly worn down by the legal fees and emotional toll. When Judge Martinez ordered Ben to attend parenting classes focused on mental health management, he complied reluctantly, often arriving late and participating minimally. The court appointed a guardian ad litem named Felicia to represent Lily's interests independently. Felicia was thorough, interviewing everyone from Lily's former teachers to the Pinewood staff to Ben's neighbors. Her preliminary report was damning. She documented a pattern of neglect before and after Lily's mother left, with multiple instances where Lily had been expected to care for Max despite her own struggles. She also uncovered disturbing text messages from Ben to Claudia, complaining about the drama Lily caused, and wondering if she might be better off in the system. When these texts were presented in court, Ben lost his composure, shouting that his words had been taken out of context, and accusing Felicia of having a vendetta against him. Judge Martinez warned Ben about his behavior, then ordered a psychological evaluation to assess his parenting capacity. Ben stormed out of the courtroom, ignoring my attempts to calm him down. Later that evening, he called me, slurring his words and blaming me for turning everyone against him. I reminded him that my primary concern was Lily's well-being, which only angered him further. At Harmony House, Lily found an unexpected ally in a staff member named Javier, who recognized her artistic abilities and brought her additional supplies, sketching pencils, watercolors, and a proper drawing pad. Under his gentle encouragement, Lily began creating a series of paintings that expressed her inner turmoil. The images were powerful. One depicted a small girl surrounded by towering, shadowy figures with exaggerated mouths, while another showed a woman floating away while a child reached for her. When I visited Lily, she showed me these paintings without explanation, the first time she'd initiated any interaction in weeks. I asked if she'd consider allowing these pieces to be shown to Judge Martinez as evidence of her emotional process, and she nodded slowly. The paintings became a turning point in the legal proceedings. Judge Martinez, after viewing them and reading Dr. Hall's latest evaluation, determined that Lily needed a specialized foster placement rather than the group home environment. He also ordered twice-weekly therapy sessions and monthly psychiatric reviews. Ben was granted supervised visitation rights, but lost primary custody pending completion of his parenting classes and substance abuse evaluation. Shannon was awarded temporary custody of Max, with the stipulation that she facilitate regular contact between the siblings, a requirement she immediately began finding excuses to circumvent. Finding an appropriate foster placement for Lily proved challenging. The first couple, the Nelsons, seemed promising. They had experience with special needs teens and a calm home environment. But after learning about Lily's history, Mrs. Nelson expressed concerns about liability if Lily had another episode. They withdrew their application after just one meeting with Lily, leaving her devastated and convinced no one would ever want her. Lily returned to Harmony House, where she stopped taking her medication until staff intervention forced compliance. Her art, previously vibrant despite its dark themes, became monochromatic and sparse. Javier reported that she spent hours staring at blank paper, unable to transfer her thoughts to the page. I increased our sessions to 3 times weekly, desperately trying to maintain the fragile progress we'd made. During one session, Lily finally spoke about her mother's suicide, asking in a small voice if I thought the note was right. Was she truly responsible? I spent the entire hour reassuring her that her mother's choices were never her burden to bear, that mental illness had claimed both of them in different ways. The breakthrough was short-lived, however, as the next day brought news that Shannon had filed for permanent custody of Max, with a request to terminate all contact with Lily as detrimental to his development. Ben, who had been making minimal progress in his court-ordered programs, seemed to give up entirely at this news, missing his next scheduled visitation with Lily. Felicia, concerned about the trajectory of the case, connected with a lawyer named Robin who specialized in special needs adoption. Robin reviewed Lily's file and suggested that termination of parental rights might be in her best interest, allowing her to be adopted by a family equipped to handle her needs. When Ben heard the word adoption, he reappeared with renewed vigor, hiring an expensive attorney to fight what he called a conspiracy to steal his daughter. The legal battle intensified, with multiple hearings scheduled to determine Lily's long-term placement. In the midst of this chaos, an unexpected ally emerged. Ms. Mahoney, Lily's former art teacher, had learned about her situation through a colleague and reached out to inquire about becoming a foster parent. She had remained single, but had a stable teaching career and a genuine connection with Lily from their previous interactions. When Ms. Mahoney visited Harmony House, Lily actually smiled for the first time in months, showing her former teacher the artwork she'd created. The change in Lily's demeanor was so dramatic that even the skeptical staff took notice. Ben's attorney immediately moved to block Ms. Mahoney's foster application, calling her a random do-gooder with no parenting experience and questioning her motives. The court ordered a thorough background check and home study, which Ms. Mahoney passed with flying colors. Judge Martinez, impressed by Ms. Mahoney's preparation and Lily's positive response, response to her, approved a trial placement over Ben's objections. Lily moved into Ms. Mahoney's modest but comfortable apartment and enrolled in an alternative education program where Ms. Mahoney had connections. The arrangement was technically temporary, but Robin began preparing adoption paperwork in case Ben's parental rights were eventually terminated. Ben responded by threatening to sue Ms. Mahoney for alienation of affection, claiming she was manipulating Lily against him. He started showing up unannounced at Ms. Mahoney's apartment, necessitating a restraining order that further damaged his case. As the final custody hearing approached, Ben's behavior became increasingly erratic. He missed required drug tests and failed to complete his parenting classes, focusing instead on a campaign to discredit Ms. Mahoney and anyone supporting Lily's placement with her. He even contacted my licensing board with vague allegations of professional misconduct, forcing me to hire my own attorney to respond. Judge Martinez was replaced due to a scheduling conflict, and the new judge, Judge Williams, required a complete case review before proceeding. This delayed the final hearing by several months, during which Lily flourished under Ms. Mahoney's consistent care. Her medication compliance improved, she engaged actively in therapy, and her artwork evolved to include colors and occasionally hopeful imagery. She even began expressing interest in attending a specialized arts high school the following year. Ben's attorney requested multiple continuances, each delay seeming designed to wear down Ms. Mahoney's resolve. But she remained steadfast, documenting Lily's progress meticulously and working closely with Lily's treatment team to address any setbacks. Shannon continued to keep Max isolated from his sister, but occasionally sent photos and brief updates through the caseworkers. These morsels of information were precious to Lily, who created a scrapbook of everything she learned about Max's life. The final blow to Ben's case came when he failed to appear for a critical court date, sending his attorney with a dubious doctor's note instead. Judge Williams was unimpressed, particularly after Felicia presented evidence that Ben had been seen at a casino the previous evening. In contrast, Ms. Mahoney arrived with a comprehensive plan for Lily's continued education, therapy regimen, and medication management, along with letters of support from Lily's treatment team and teachers at her new school. After reviewing all evidence, Judge Williams made the unprecedented decision to terminate Ben's parental rights, citing abandonment and failure to address the issues that led to Lily's removal. The path to adoption was now clear, though Robin warned it would still take months to finalize. Lily's reaction to the news was complicated, relief mixed with grief for the father she once had, before trauma and addiction had transformed him. In the end, Lily's adoption was finalized in a small courthouse ceremony that I was honored to attend. Max wasn't present. Shannon had moved him out of state, effectively severing the sibling relationship despite court orders to maintain contact. This remained a painful reality for Lily, but Ms. Mahoney promised to help her reconnect with Max when he was older and able to make his own decisions. As Lily signed her new name, Lily Mahoney, on the adoption papers, I recognized the bittersweet victory of the moment. This child who had nearly been lost to a system that fails so many had found her way to safety, but at tremendous cost. The journey had exposed every weakness in our mental health and child welfare systems, from inadequate early intervention, to insufficient family support, to the brutal battles that prioritize parental rights over children's well-being. Lily hugged me before leaving the courthouse, whispering a simple thank you that contained volumes. I watched her walk away with Ms. Mahoney, their heads bent together in conversation, and allowed myself to feel the rare satisfaction of a case where, despite everything, something had gone right. The system had failed Lily repeatedly, but through a combination of persistence, luck, and the dedication of a few key individuals, she had found her way to safety. Not every child is so fortunate, which is why I continue this work, hoping to catch the next Lily before they reach for the gun, before they lose hope, before the system grinds them into statistics. Lily still has a long road ahead. Her mental health will require lifelong management, and the trauma she's endured will never fully disappear. But she has something now that seemed impossible in those dark days after her mother's death, a future worth fighting for. I think about Lily a lot these days whenever the work gets overwhelming. This job takes more from you than most people realize. I started in Child Protective Services 15 years ago with bright eyes and grand ideas. Reality hit fast. My caseload doubled in 6 months. The paperwork buried me alive. Kids kept falling through cracks I couldn't seal. I almost quit that first year. Then I met Marco, a 10-year-old with cigarette burns on his arms. His eyes stayed blank when we talked. He wouldn't look at me directly. I took him from that house on a Tuesday morning. His father screamed threats from the front porch. His mother cried in the kitchen. Marco just walked to my car without a word. He carried a small backpack with 3 shirts and a teddy bear missing an eye. We drove in silence for 20 minutes. Then he asked if I liked baseball. Just like that, he started talking. The system worked for Marco. He found a good foster home with the Petersons. They adopted him 2 years later. I went to his high school graduation. He's studying engineering now at State. One success kept me going through dozens of failures. This job breaks your heart daily. You learn to celebrate small victories. You learn to compartmentalize the losses. You have to. The weight would crush you otherwise. I remember the Johnson twins, found locked in a closet for 3 days. Their aunt took them in immediately. The Miller boy who set fires to feel something. He's doing better with proper medication now. The countless teens who ran from placements. Many disappeared into streets that devour the vulnerable. I keep their files in a special drawer. I still look for them sometimes. The hardest cases stay with you forever. Lily could have easily joined that list of regrets. I first met her on a freezing January morning. The school counselor had called in the report. Lily hadn't spoken in class for days. Her homework mentioned death repeatedly. She came to school in the same clothes 3 days straight. The teacher noticed bruises on her wrists. I drove to the school with snow falling heavily. The roads were slick with ice. The car heater barely worked. I rehearsed my approach while driving. First meetings matter most with traumatized kids. The counselor met me at the front office. She looked stressed and exhausted. The fluorescent lights made everyone look sickly. Lily sat alone in a small conference room. She stared at her hands folded on the table. Her brown hair needed washing. Her coat had tears at both elbows. I introduced myself casually. No response at first. I mentioned I liked her unicorn backpack. She glanced up briefly. Progress comes in tiny moments. We talked about simple things first. Favorite classes, school lunch, the weather. She gave one-word answers mostly. I asked about home eventually. Her shoulders instantly tensed. Her fingers twisted together painfully. She looked at the door like an escape route. I backed off immediately. Trust builds slowly with abused children. I checked her file while she used the bathroom. Mother died 14 months prior. Father worked night shifts at the factory. 3 school absences that month already. Previous good grades dropping steadily. I called her father from the school office. No answer. I left a message explaining my visit. We needed to schedule a home assessment. Lily watched me make the call. Her eyes widened with fear. That told me plenty already. I took Lily for hot chocolate after getting permission. The small diner across from school was warm and quiet. She ordered marshmallows but didn't eat them. I noticed scratch marks on her left arm. They looked self-inflicted. She caught me looking and pulled down her sleeve. We sat in awkward silence for several minutes. Then she asked if I would take her away. Just like that. No preamble. Her voice sounded so small. I explained my job carefully. I told her about safety plans, about family preservation when possible, about foster care when necessary. She nodded like she understood completely. Her eyes held wisdom no 12-year-old should possess. Her father called back while we sat there. He sounded angry and defensive. He demanded to know why I was talking to his daughter. I kept my voice professionally neutral. I scheduled a home visit for the next morning. He reluctantly agreed. I drove Lily back to school afterward. She moved like she carried invisible weights. The school counselor met us at the door. She gave Lily a gentle side hug. Lily flinched slightly at the contact. I watched her walk back to class. Her shoulders hunched forward protectively. I documented everything in my car before driving away. The snowfall had worsened considerably. The windshield wipers barely kept up. I visited 2 more families that afternoon. A baby with suspicious fractures. A teenager caught stealing food repeatedly. Each case file joined the tower on my desk. Each family needed more than I could give. The system stretched beyond capacity years ago. We just keep piling more weight on the breaking points. I worked until 8 that night catching up on reports. My supervisor stopped by my cubicle before leaving. She looked as tired as I felt. Budget cuts meant another position eliminated. My caseload would increase again next month. I nodded and promised to manage somehow. We both knew it was impossible already. I drove home through quiet streets. My apartment felt empty and cold. I heated leftover pasta in the microwave. I fell asleep reviewing case notes on my couch. Lily's home visit loomed in my thoughts. Morning came too quickly. I overslept and rushed through my shower. I spilled coffee on my only clean shirt. Traffic backed up for miles due to an accident. I arrived at Lily's house 30 minutes late. The small ranch-style home needed paint and repairs. Dead plants lined the walkway. Newspapers piled up on the porch. The doorbell didn't work when I pressed it. I knocked loudly instead. Lily's father opened the door partially. He didn't invite me in immediately. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His clothes smelled of alcohol and cigarettes. I introduced myself professionally. I explained the purpose of my visit. He reluctantly stepped aside to let me enter. The house felt cold inside. Dirty dishes filled the kitchen sink. Takeout containers covered the counters. Empty beer cans lined the living room floor. No photos were visible anywhere. No decorations suggested a child lived there. He offered excuses about working doubles, about struggling since his wife died, about doing his best alone. I nodded sympathetically while taking mental notes. I asked to see Lily's room. He hesitated noticeably. Red flag number 1. We walked down a narrow hallway. The carpet hadn't been vacuumed in months. He opened the second door on the right. The small bedroom contained just a mattress on the floor. A plastic bin held some folded clothes. School books stacked neatly in one corner. No decorations, no toys visible, no personality in the space. I asked about the living situation casually. He mentioned selling furniture to pay bills. Said Lily didn't mind the simplicity. The bathroom showed signs of neglect too. No toothpaste visible. Towels smelled of mildew. The medicine cabinet contained prescription bottles with his name. Several were for heavy painkillers. Several were empty. Red flag number 2. I asked where Lily was during our visit. School, he said quickly. Too quickly. I checked my watch. School didn't start for another hour. Red flag number 3. I pressed gently about her whereabouts. He became defensive immediately. His voice rose sharply. He stepped closer to me. His hands clenched into fists. I maintained professional calm outwardly. Inside, alarm bells rang loudly. I asked directly if Lily was in the house. He denied it angrily, called me nosy and intrusive, suggested I was harassing a grieving family. I heard a soft thump from somewhere nearby. His eyes darted toward the sound. I moved toward the hallway again. He blocked my path physically, threatened to call my supervisor, told me to leave immediately. I remained firmly professional. I explained the legal requirements. I mentioned potential police involvement. His face darkened with rage. Then a small sound came from behind a closed door. A child's cough, quickly muffled. I looked directly at him. He looked away first. I walked firmly toward the sound. He followed close behind me. His breath hit the back of my neck. I knocked gently on the closed door. No answer came. I tried the handle. Locked from the outside. A small sliding bolt secured it. Absolutely illegal. Completely dangerous. Undeniably abusive. I turned to face him directly. I kept my voice steady and firm. I insisted he open the door immediately. Surprisingly, he complied without further argument. His shoulders slumped in defeat. The small utility room held cleaning supplies. A water heater rumbled in one corner. And there sat Lily on a thin blanket. Her school uniform looked wrinkled and dirty. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. A granola bar wrapper lay beside her. No water was visible. No bathroom access existed. The small window had been nailed shut. She looked up at me without surprise, like she'd expected this outcome all along. I helped her stand up carefully. Her legs wobbled from sitting too long. I guided her past her father without speaking. He made no move to stop us. Her backpack sat by the front door. She grabbed it quickly. We walked to my car in silence. She climbed into the backseat automatically, like she'd done this before. Perhaps she had. Records sometimes miss previous interventions. I called my supervisor from the driveway. Police arrived within 20 minutes. Lily watched them enter the house. Her face showed no emotion at all. I drove her to the emergency room for evaluation. Standard protocol required medical clearance. The doctor found mild dehydration, bruising on her upper arms, self-harm marks on her thighs, signs of chronic neglect, no sexual abuse indicators. Small mercies exist even in terrible situations. Social services had no emergency placements available. Not surprising given the constant shortage. I called 17 foster homes before finding space. A temporary placement with the Wilsons. They had taken difficult cases before. Their modest home always had room for one more somehow. Lily sat beside me during these calls. She never spoke, never cried, never showed any reaction. This emotional shutdown concerned me deeply. It suggested long-term trauma, the kind that requires years of therapy, the kind that leaves permanent scars. The Wilsons welcomed her kindly that evening. Mrs. Wilson showed her a small bedroom, clean sheets, stuffed animals, books on a shelf. Lily stood in the doorway looking confused, like she couldn't understand why anyone would provide comfort. Mrs. Wilson didn't push or hover. She simply showed Lily where things were, then gave her space to adjust. I promised Lily I would check on her tomorrow. She nodded without making eye contact. I drove home feeling the familiar mixture: relief at removing her from danger, worry about her long-term healing, anger at a system perpetually under-resourced, frustration at parents who damage innocent children. I stopped for takeout on the way home. I ate without tasting the food. I fell asleep reviewing case notes again. The following weeks blurred together in memory. Lily's father faced criminal charges. He made bail unexpectedly. Someone paid it anonymously. He violated orders by contacting Lily's school. Police arrested him again. The cycle repeated twice more. Lily remained with the Wilsons meanwhile. She started therapy with Dr. Brandt. Progress came slowly at first. She wouldn't speak during sessions initially. She drew pictures instead. Dark houses, locked doors, a woman lying very still, a gun on a table. The images told her story clearly. Her father blamed her for her mother's death. He punished her through isolation and neglect. He drank heavily most nights. He threatened her with abandonment regularly. She began attending school regularly again. Her grades improved gradually. She made one friend named Emma. They sat together at lunch daily. Small victories sustained hope. Spring arrived with warmer temperatures. Lily began therapy twice weekly. She started speaking during sessions eventually. She disclosed her mother's suicide in fragments, finding the body, her father's breakdown afterward, his escalating neglect and psychological abuse. Her own suicidal thoughts developed gradually. The gun in their house remained accessible. She considered using it often. Her disclosure triggered immediate safety protocols. Police removed all weapons from her father's home. The court case proceeded slowly. Typical delays plagued the process. Lily remained with the Wilsons through summer. I visited weekly as required. I brought her books sometimes. She enjoyed fantasy stories especially, worlds different from her reality, characters who overcame impossible odds. She began seeing a psychiatrist monthly. Medication helped stabilize her mood somewhat. Her nightmares decreased in frequency. She gained weight steadily. Her hair regained its natural shine. The physical healing outpaced the emotional recovery. That's typical with severe trauma. Bodies heal faster than minds. The preliminary hearing arrived in August. Lily needed to testify potentially. Her therapist recommended against it strongly. The prosecutor agreed to video testimony instead. Lily recorded her statement at the advocacy center. She spoke clearly about the abuse, about the neglect after her mother died, about the closet where punishment happened, about going hungry for days sometimes, about missing school when bruises showed, about contemplating suicide repeatedly. Her father accepted a plea deal ultimately. 5 years with possibility of parole, less than he deserved, more than many abusers receive. The criminal justice system offers imperfect solutions. Lily showed little reaction to the news. Her emotional protective barriers remained strong, understandable given her experiences. Trust builds slowly after betrayal. Healing follows no convenient timeline. Fall brought school transitions. Lily entered 7th grade. The Wilsons became her long-term placement. Their modest home provided stability. Their patience never seemed to waver. They understood trauma responses well. They never took her behavior personally. They celebrated small improvements genuinely. They created safety through consistency. Holidays proved challenging as expected. Lily struggled with memories of better times, of Christmases before her mother's depression, of birthdays when gifts appeared, of family dinners without tension. Grief complicated her healing journey. Loss layered upon trauma creates complexity. Her therapy continued twice weekly. Art therapy helped express emotions words couldn't reach. Group therapy connected her with similar survivors. Equine therapy taught trust through animal connections. The Wilsons drove her faithfully to each appointment. They rearranged work schedules accordingly. They prioritized her healing above convenience. I transferred to a different unit eventually. Preventative services suited my burnout better. I worked with families before removal became necessary. I taught parenting skills to struggling mothers. I connected fathers with addiction services. I helped grandparents raising traumatized grandchildren. The work remained difficult but felt more hopeful somehow. I checked on Lily periodically despite the transfer. Professional boundaries suggest limiting ongoing contact, but some cases touch you differently. Some children stay in your thoughts persistently. Lily graduated middle school with honors. She joined the school photography club. She made several consistent friends. She still saw her therapist weekly. She still took medication daily. She still struggled with trust issues, but progress continued steadily. Small victories accumulated gradually. 3 years after removal, the Wilsons petitioned to adopt Lily. She agreed immediately when asked. The court date arrived on a sunny April morning. The judge asked Lily about her wishes directly. She spoke clearly about wanting permanence, about considering the Wilsons her real family, about feeling safe for the first time in years. The judge approved the adoption that day. Lily hyphenated her last name willingly. She kept part of her history while embracing her future. Balance matters in healing journeys. I attended the small celebration afterward. Lily smiled genuinely throughout the event. She hugged Mrs. Wilson without hesitation. She accepted congratulations comfortably. She looked directly at people when speaking. Small victories that represented mountains of progress. She asked me to take a photo of her new family. I captured the moment willingly. Her smile reached her eyes completely. I keep that photo on my desk still. A reminder that healing remains possible. A reminder that intervention matters tremendously, a reminder that broken systems sometimes work regardless. Lily started high school the following fall. She joined the yearbook committee eagerly. Photography provided creative expression outlets. Her therapist reduced sessions to monthly check-ins. Her medication dosage decreased gradually. Her nightmares occurred rarely by then. She maintained consistent friendships successfully. She developed appropriate boundaries in relationships. She recognized unhealthy dynamics quickly. Her trauma informed her awareness without defining her identity, a delicate balance many survivors never achieve. I changed positions again eventually. Policy development suited my experience level. I helped draft legislation for improved protections. I trained new caseworkers about trauma responses. I testified before state committees about funding needs. My direct cases decreased significantly. My influence on systemic problems increased proportionally. Lily graduated high school with honors. She received a scholarship to State University. She planned to study psychology and social work. Her senior project focused on childhood trauma recovery. She interviewed me for her research paper. She spoke eloquently about systemic failures, about interventions that helped her personally, about changes needed for future children. Her insights showed remarkable self-awareness. Her compassion extended beyond her own experience. Her determination to help others impressed me deeply. The cycle of trauma often continues generationally. Lily deliberately chose to break that pattern. She entered college with clear goals already. She volunteered at the campus crisis line. She maintained therapy appointments monthly. She adjusted her medication seasonally as needed. She recognized her mental health required maintenance. She accepted this reality without shame or resentment. Her first year passed with expected challenges. Dormitory living triggered some anxiety initially. Group projects caused stress occasionally. Academic pressure mounted during finals, but she utilized her coping skills effectively. She reached out for support appropriately. She maintained healthy boundaries consistently. Success in recovery isn't measured by absence of struggles. Success means handling difficulties without self-destruction. Lily embodied this understanding completely. She called me occasionally during school breaks. Professional boundaries had evolved into appropriate mentorship. She sought career advice periodically. She shared academic achievements proudly. She discussed her ongoing therapy insights thoughtfully. I provided recommendations for graduate programs. I connected her with internship opportunities. I celebrated her continued healing journey. 5 years from her darkest moment, Lily thrived visibly. Not without ongoing challenges, certainly. Not without occasional therapy intensification. Not without medication adjustment sometimes. But with remarkable resilience regardless. With purpose directing her choices consistently. With hope governing her outlook persistently. Last month, Lily started her internship at our agency. The same department that intervened in her case. The same building where her file still exists. The same system she once feared desperately. She approached her first day with understandable nervousness. With awareness of potential triggers, certainly. With professional boundaries firmly established. Her supervisor knows her background completely. Her caseload excludes certain trauma types intentionally. Her weekly supervision includes mental health check-ins. She called me after completing her first home visit. Pride resonated through her voice clearly. She recognized signs the previous her would have hidden. She connected a struggling mother with immediate resources. She potentially prevented removal through early intervention. The cycle shifted from victim to helper beautifully, from broken to healing to helping others heal. Lily represents why this work matters fundamentally. Why burnt-out social workers continue despite inadequate resources. Why policymakers should listen to survivors directly. Why trauma-informed care changes outcomes dramatically. I still carry too many cases daily. I still fight budget cuts regularly. I still attend funerals for system failures occasionally. I still struggle with bureaucratic obstacles constantly. But I look at Lily's photo when hopelessness threatens. I remember her locked in that utility closet. I recall her silence during early therapy sessions. I visualize her graduation with honors. Her story reminds me why I started this work, why I continue despite the emotional cost. Why each child deserves persistent advocacy. The system remains deeply flawed unquestionably. Children still fall through widening cracks daily. Funding shrinks while needs grow exponentially. Political priorities rarely center vulnerable populations. But individual interventions still matter tremendously. One social worker can change one life significantly. One teacher can notice warning signs promptly. One neighbor can report concerns appropriately. One therapist can guide healing journeys skillfully. Lily now sits at a desk down the hall. She reviews case files with trauma-informed perspective. She visits homes with compassionate awareness. She recognizes signs others might overlook easily. She embodies both professional knowledge and lived experience, a powerful combination in this difficult field. Her presence reminds veteran staff why protocols matter, why documentation saves lives potentially, why home visits reveal hidden truths regularly, why believing children changes outcomes fundamentally. Not every intervention succeeds like Lily's case. Not every child finds safety before damage becomes severe. Not every adult overcomes childhood trauma completely. Not every story ends with college scholarships. But every effort creates possibility regardless. Every conversation offers potential connection. Every report investigated prevents potential tragedy. Every resource provided changes trajectory somewhat. I mentor new caseworkers regularly now. I share Lily's story with appropriate privacy protections. I emphasize the importance of thorough investigations. I validate the emotional toll this work takes. I acknowledge system failures honestly. I celebrate incremental successes genuinely. I encourage sustainable self-care practices. This field loses dedicated workers constantly. Burnout claims passionate advocates regularly. Secondary trauma accumulates gradually. Bureaucratic frustrations mount persistently. But stories like Lily's sustain us collectively, remind us why documentation matters critically, why court testimony requires thorough preparation, why supervision prevents dangerous oversight. Lily stops by my office weekly. We discuss challenging cases confidentially. confidentially. We process difficult home visits professionally. We celebrate small victories appropriately. Her perspective offers unique insights regularly. Her lived experience informs policy recommendations. Her professional development continues impressively. She dates someone from her psychology program now. They share similar career interests naturally. They understand work-life balance importance. They support each other's mental health maintenance. She navigates this relationship healthfully. She recognizes unhealthy dynamics immediately. She communicates boundaries effectively. Her trauma doesn't dictate her relationship patterns. Another victory worth celebrating genuinely. Another area where healing manifests visibly. Another reminder that intervention timing matters critically. Next month marks 7 years since that utility closet. Since finding Lily contemplating ending her life. Since removing her from chronic neglect and abuse. Since beginning her long healing journey. She plans to apply to graduate programs soon. She wants to specialize in childhood trauma treatment. She hopes to develop preventative programs eventually. She speaks to community groups occasionally. Her story inspires other survivors regularly. Her example encourages struggling teenagers. Her success validates intervention importance. This work breaks your heart repeatedly. This system fails vulnerable children regularly. This field loses dedicated workers constantly. This struggle continues without adequate resources. But Lily walks these hallways now regardless. She carries case files with experienced awareness. She visits frightened children with genuine compassion. She represents possibility amid systematic failure. I continue this work because of stories like hers. Because intervention matters tremendously. Because systems improve through persistent advocacy. Because children deserve relentless protection. Because Lily now helps the next child reach safety. The cycle continues with hope replacing despair. With healing transforming brokenness gradually. With purpose emerging from painful experiences. With future social workers born from past interventions. With wisdom marking paths through impossible circumstances. This is what kept me going on my hardest days. I remember walking into the office that Monday after Lily's case closed. My desk overflowed with new files. Each manila folder held another child's future. Another family in crisis. Another community struggling to respond. I picked up the first file and read the intake summary. 10-year-old Marcus. Neighbors reported screaming. School reported unexplained absences. Medical records showed a suspicious pattern. I called the reporting teacher immediately. She answered on the second ring. He hasn't been here all week, she said. I thanked her and grabbed my keys. The drive to Marcus's apartment took 20 minutes. Rain pounded my windshield the entire way. Puddles formed in the complex's parking lot. Security buzzed me through reluctantly. The elevator smelled like cigarettes and cleaning solution. I knocked 3 times before anyone answered. Marcus's mother cracked the door 2 inches. Her eyes darted behind me to check for police. I showed my identification card. I explained the purpose of my visit. I asked to speak with Marcus. She hesitated before opening the door fully. The apartment was clean but sparse. A single couch faced an old television. School books sat neatly on the coffee table. Marcus appeared from a back bedroom. His eyes met mine briefly, then dropped to the floor. I noticed the bruise immediately. It spread across his left cheekbone in shades of purple. His mother saw me looking. She quickly explained about a baseball accident. Marcus nodded in automatic agreement. I asked to speak with him alone. His mother protested but eventually agreed. She stepped onto the tiny balcony to smoke. Marcus remained standing even when I sat down. His posture reminded me of Lily. The same vigilant stillness. The same readiness to flee. I kept my voice gentle. I asked simple questions about school, about friends, about what he enjoyed doing. Slowly his shoulders relaxed slightly. He sat on the edge of the couch. He mentioned a science project about planets. His eyes brightened momentarily. Then his mother came back inside. The shutters came down instantly. I left with more questions than answers. I called Marcus's school again from my car. The principal provided attendance records. 27 absences since September. I drove to the nearest hospital next. Medical records showed 3 emergency room visits in 2 years. Broken arm, concussion, severe stomach pain, different hospitals each time, different explanations each time. Red flags multiplied rapidly. I returned to the office and documented everything. I requested an emergency removal order. The judge reviewed the evidence and approved it. Police accompanied me back to the apartment that evening. Marcus's mother screamed accusations. Neighbors peered through doorways. Marcus silently packed a small backpack. He asked only about his science homework. I drove him to an emergency foster placement. The Johnsons had taken in dozens of children over 15 years. They greeted Marcus with quiet respect. They showed him a room with a desk for his homework. They didn't push for conversation. I watched some tension leave his small body. I returned to my office to complete the paperwork. My phone rang as I was finishing. Lily's name appeared on the caller ID. She called monthly now to check in, to update me on her college applications, to tell me about her volunteer work with younger foster kids. She asked about my newest cases without prying for details. She understood boundaries but offered emotional support anyway. One day at a time, she reminded me before hanging up. I smiled at the role reversal, the student becoming the teacher, the rescued becoming the rescuer. I turned back to Marcus's file with renewed determination. Days turned into weeks with his case. I visited the foster home regularly. Marcus slowly began talking more. He excelled in science classes despite everything. His teacher sent glowing reports about his astronomy project. His mother refused services initially. She denied all allegations angrily. She missed scheduled visitations repeatedly. Then suddenly she appeared at my office unannounced. She brought Marcus's favorite action figure. She asked about parenting classes tearfully. She admitted her boyfriend had caused the bruises. She chose Marcus over the relationship finally. I arranged increased visitation. I connected her with domestic violence services. I found affordable counseling options. Marcus's face showed cautious hope during visits. Progress came in small increments. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Paperwork multiplied endlessly. Court hearings demanded precise documentation. Budget cuts threatened support services. Politicians made speeches about family values. Administrators worried about liability concerns. Through it all, Marcus worked on planets at the kitchen table. His foster mother bought him glow-in-the-dark stars. His biological mother attended every parenting session. 6 months passed before reunification became possible. I helped move Marcus's belongings back home. His mother had found a better apartment. She had secured a stable job. She had completed all required programs successfully. Marcus hugged his foster parents goodbye sincerely. They promised to attend his science fair. Connections connections remained intact across different households. The system worked correctly for once. I documented the successful case closure carefully. My supervisor noted it during my performance review positively. But 20 new files already waited on my desk. The cycle never paused for celebration. Another late night found me reviewing intake reports. Another child needed immediate intervention. Another family hovered at the breaking point. Another community resource reached capacity limits. I grabbed my emergency bag from under my desk. It contained snacks for hungry kids, clean clothes in various sizes, basic toiletries, comfort items, lessons from hundreds of removals packed into one duffel bag. The address led me to a motel on the highway. Police cars already filled the parking lot. An officer briefed me quickly. Parents arrested for manufacturing methamphetamine. 3 children found in the room, ages 7, 4, and 18 months. No relatives immediately available. No prior case history in our system. I entered the room cautiously. The smell hit me first. Chemical residue, unwashed bodies, spoiled food. The oldest child stood protectively in front of her siblings. Her eyes tracked my every movement warily. The middle child hid partially behind her. The baby whimpered softly from a playpen. I introduced myself calmly. I explained what would happen next honestly. I helped gather their few belongings respectfully. The oldest girl asked about keeping them together. I promised to try my absolute best. Her doubt showed plainly on her small face. Too many broken promises already in her short life. I understood her skepticism completely. Finding a placement for 3 siblings challenged the system's limitations. I made 27 phone calls from my car. Foster homes had single openings. Group homes had age restrictions. Relatives needed background checks first. The children waited silently in the back seat. The oldest girl fed the baby with a bottle I provided. She helped her brother color in a book. She whispered reassurances when they weren't intended for my ears. Finally, a placement coordinator found a possibility. An experienced foster couple with a recently empty nest. Their 3 bedrooms could accommodate siblings temporarily. Their training qualified them for trauma cases specifically. I drove 30 miles to their rural home gratefully. The foster mother met us on the porch warmly. She had prepared beds already. She had heated homemade soup quickly. She had experience with methamphetamine exposure cases. The oldest girl relaxed fractionally at this welcome. The younger boy accepted a teddy bear cautiously. The baby settled into waiting arms naturally. I completed placement paperwork thoroughly. I promised to return the next morning promptly. I drove home at midnight exhausted. My apartment greeted me with empty silence. Unwashed dishes sat in the sink accusingly. Unfolded laundry covered my bedroom chair. Unopened mail piled on the counter. I ignored it all and collapsed into bed. My phone alarm would ring again in 5 hours. The cases never stopped coming steadily. The needs never diminished realistically. The system never provided enough resources consistently. Morning came too quickly as always. I showered and dressed automatically. I reviewed case notes while drinking coffee hurriedly. I packed my bag with family photos from the motel room. Children should keep their memories when possible. The foster home appeared different in daylight. Flowers lined the driveway colorfully. A playground set stood in the backyard. Chickens roamed a fenced area nearby. The children seemed calmer after rest and food. The oldest girl asked practical questions about school enrollment, about parental visitation possibilities, about keeping her siblings together permanently. I answered as honestly as circumstances allowed. The truth remained complicated and uncertain. I promised advocacy, but not specific outcomes. She nodded with premature wisdom. I left to investigate family placement options immediately. Grandmother in another state. Aunt with her own CPS history. Father's whereabouts unknown entirely. Mother's parents deceased years ago. Extended families scattered by dysfunction patterns. I compiled reports for the first court hearing diligently. The judge ordered services for the parents provisionally. Substance abuse treatment, parenting education, housing assistance, employment training, mental health assessment. The children would remain in care temporarily. The timeline for reunification seemed questionable already. Methamphetamine recovery statistics remained discouraging generally. I explained everything to the oldest girl honestly. She nodded with resignation beyond her years. I promised to keep visiting regularly, to check on school progress personally, to maintain sibling connections carefully, to represent their best interests faithfully. The foster parents committed to the long journey supportively. Weeks passed with small improvements noteworthy. The children settled into school routines gradually. The baby gained weight steadily. The middle child spoke more frequently. The oldest girl joined a science club reluctantly. Their mother attended one visit before relapsing unfortunately. Their father appeared unexpectedly at the second hearing. He requested custody consideration surprisingly. Background checks revealed minimal criminal history thankfully. Paternity tests confirmed biological connections promptly. Home studies began for his apartment cautiously. The children met him during supervised visits nervously. The oldest girl remained skeptical protectively. The younger boy showed curiosity naturally. The baby showed no recognition understandably. I observed interactions from the corner attentively. The father brought age-appropriate gifts thoughtfully. He asked questions about school interests genuinely. He took parenting advice non-defensively. Hope emerged tentatively within established boundaries. Meanwhile, other cases demanded equal attention constantly. A teenager contemplating suicide desperately. Parents fighting over custody vengefully. A toddler ingesting illegal substances accidentally. A teacher reporting suspected abuse bravely. A hospital noting suspicious injuries correctly. Each situation required immediate response unfailingly. Each family deserved thorough assessment fairly. Each child needed safety established quickly. My colleagues carried similar caseloads simultaneously. We covered for each other during emergencies frequently. We shared resources creatively during shortages. We celebrated small victories intentionally. We mourned inevitable failures privately. Burnout threatened our effectiveness constantly. I remembered Lily during difficult moments purposefully. Her resilience inspired continued persistence daily. Her success justified systematic intervention clearly. Her ongoing communication provided rare feedback valuably. Social work rarely showed long-term outcomes visibly. We planted seeds without seeing full growth typically. We built foundations without witnessing completed structures commonly. We redirected rivers without knowing final destinations usually. Months passed with the sibling group case progressively. The father completed parenting classes successfully. He secured a larger apartment proactively. He maintained steady employment impressively. He attended all visitations consistently. He developed relationships with each child individually. individually. Court reports recommended increased visitation accordingly. Weekend visits began with careful monitoring regularly. The children returned with positive reports generally. The oldest girl's skepticism softened gradually. The foster parents supported transition plans graciously. Reunification planning proceeded optimistically. Then crisis struck without warning suddenly. The father lost his job unexpectedly. The apartment fell into jeopardy immediately. Financial stress triggered old coping mechanisms unfortunately. A random drug test showed positive results devastatingly. The children returned from a weekend visit withdrawn noticeably. The oldest girl reported concerning behaviors reluctantly. Progress reversed direction dramatically. The father requested treatment voluntarily at least. He acknowledged relapse honestly. He prioritized recovery commendably. But timelines for permanency couldn't extend indefinitely. Federal guidelines limited temporary placements reasonably. Children needed stability established definitively. Difficult decisions loomed on the horizon inevitably. I met with my supervisor to discuss options thoroughly. I consulted with the children's attorney regarding rights specifically. I interviewed the children about their wishes sensitively. I reviewed all possible family placements exhaustively. I examined interstate compact requirements meticulously. The grandmother in Arizona emerged as a possibility potentially. Her home study showed adequate space physically. Her background check revealed no disqualifying factors legally. Her income provided sufficient support financially. Her health allowed for childcare capabilities physically. Her relationship with the children existed minimally previously. Virtual visits began to establish connections gradually. The oldest girl expressed guarded interest cautiously. The younger children responded to attention naturally. The grandmother learned about their interests enthusiastically. She arranged her home for 3 children proactively. She researched schools in her area thoroughly. She requested transfer of custody formally. The court considered this option alongside others carefully. The father's progress in treatment factored significantly. The mother's continued absence weighed heavily. The children's need for permanency mattered critically. The system's obligation to family preservation balanced complexly. The judge ruled for kinship placement conditionally. The father retained visitation rights specifically. Reunification remained a future possibility potentially. Termination of rights was suspended temporarily. I arranged travel plans for interstate transition accordingly. The foster family hosted a goodbye celebration supportively. The children packed their belongings completely this time. The oldest girl carried my business card secretly. I promised ongoing contact despite distance challenges. I waved goodbye at the airport emotionally. Another case closed with mixed outcomes realistically. No perfect solutions existed in broken situations honestly. Only better alternatives among imperfect options truly. I returned to the office finding new crises waiting predictably. A baby born testing positive for substances urgently. A teenager running away repeatedly. A custody dispute escalating dangerously. An overwhelmed parent requesting temporary placement voluntarily. The cycle continued without interruption constantly. Years passed with hundreds more cases similarly. Some ended with reunification successfully. Some concluded with adoption permanently. Some resulted in long-term foster care practically. Some young adults aged out independently. Some families healed stronger than before impressively. Some parents never overcame their challenges tragically. Some children repeated patterns intergenerationally. Some broke cycles definitively against all odds remarkably. I tracked success stories intentionally for motivation. I attended high school graduations proudly. I received wedding invitations occasionally. I celebrated college acceptances joyfully. I witnessed former clients becoming parents responsibly. I recognized healing across generations hopefully. Lily graduated with her social work degree eventually. She accepted a position in our office surprisingly. She sat across from me during orientation ironically. She brought perspective from both sides uniquely. She connected with clients authentically. She navigated the system knowledgeably. She advocated fiercely but respectfully. She documented thoroughly but efficiently. She maintained boundaries healthily. She processed secondary trauma proactively. She represented the possibility amid systematic failure perfectly. I mentored her through difficult cases supportively. I shared resources developed over decades willingly. I introduced connections throughout the system helpfully. I provided context for policy limitations realistically. I celebrated her innovative approaches enthusiastically. Together we worked cases from different perspectives effectively. The sibling group from the motel contacted me unexpectedly. The oldest girl had turned 18 recently. She called from Arizona purposefully. She reported successful adaptation impressively. She planned college with her grandmother's support proudly. She maintained relationships with both siblings carefully. She requested her file contents curiously. She wanted to understand her journey comprehensively. I arranged for records according to regulations properly. I added a personal note congratulating her accomplishments sincerely. Marcus contacted me during his high school graduation similarly. His mother maintained sobriety successfully. His grades qualified him for scholarships impressively. His science projects won national recognition repeatedly. His foster parents attended the ceremony proudly. His resilience transformed potential tragedy remarkably. His mother thanked me for not giving up initially. His future opened with possibilities deservedly. Each success story sustained difficult days dependably. Each child reaching safety justified sleepless nights completely. Each family finding healing validated endless paperwork thoroughly. Each system improvement motivated continued advocacy persistently. Each policy change affected countless future cases significantly. The work continued despite bureaucratic frustrations consistently, despite inadequate resources chronically, despite secondary trauma cumulatively, despite political fluctuations regularly, despite public misunderstanding commonly, because intervention matters tremendously in individual lives concretely, because systems improve through persistent advocacy gradually, because children deserve relentless protection unconditionally, because healing transforms brokenness incrementally, because purpose emerges from painful experiences meaningfully, because hope replaces despair intentionally, because cycles break through deliberate intervention strategically, because future social workers emerge from past interventions cyclically. The work continues generation after generation determinedly. Lily now supervises new caseworkers supportively. I approach retirement reflectively. The files transfer to younger hands respectfully. The knowledge passes to new advocates responsibly. The commitment continues through institutional memory collectively. The children still need protection universally. The families still need support consistently. The communities still need resources adequately. The cycle continues imperfectly but hopefully, with wisdom marking paths through impossible circumstances persistently, with courage facing heartbreaking situations repeatedly, with compassion offering dignity amid difficulty genuinely, with determination pursuing justice despite obstacles frequently, with belief in possibility sustaining difficult work continually, with recognition that each story matters individually, with understanding that systems change incrementally, with knowledge that healing happens gradually, with faith that effort creates difference eventually, one case at a time, one child at a time, one family at a time, one small victory at a time.